Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our school showcase featuring Eagle Hill School in Greenwich, Connecticut. My name is Christine Lai, and I am your host and moderator for this school showcase today, in which we're delighted to bring you senior leadership from the Eagle Hill School and to give you, parents, caregivers, professionals, educators, a glimpse into Eagle Hill School and what makes the community at Eagle Hill special. Thank you, everyone. Sorry for the technical difficulties there. Um, Apologies. So welcome everyone to this, school showcase featuring the Eagle Hill School. As I said, my name is Christine Lai. I'm just going to go through a very, very brief introduction for those of you who are on the this webinar who are not familiar with Special Education Legal Fund. We are a nonprofit organization that was founded in Connecticut in 2018, and our purpose is to provide resources, knowledge, and support to families in need with children in the special education system. We do this primarily through two grants programs, the Attorney Grant Program and the Advocate Grant Program, which we run on a monthly basis through the academic year. The grants for families are currently accepting applications for November. And the Attorney Grant Program, if you are not familiar with it, provides families with up to $6,000 in legal support from a qualified attorney. Advocate Grant Program, similar, $1,000 in advocacy support from a qualified non-attorney special education advocate. You can visit our website, which is www.spedlegalfund.org. Apply for grant in order to start the process. I will put that website in the chat shortly during the presentation so you can take a look at it for your reference. But we're really, really pleased to be able to offer grants to families who might be in need of an attorney or an advocate to support their process. And this is our 7th year of providing those grants. Next up, a little commercial, I guess, is our webinar for next week, our evening panel series. For those of you who this is your first time, we do also, in addition to these webinars that we host with schools, so that parents and professionals can get to know the schools in our area and the resources that are available to them. We also host an evening webinar series which features panelists on a variety of topics that are germane to families in the special education system. And next week's webinar is a great one. It is middle school. Are you ready for it? A little bit of a Taylor Swift fan here. So I was like, nobody's getting this though. So anyway, it's middle school. Are you ready for it? Featuring attorney Meredith Braxton, advocate Stacy Ta, and Dr. Diana Nadeo, all of whom are going to give their perspective as to how families can know if their students are ready for middle school. This is a webinar that will be moderated by Bill DeHaven from Villa Maria. So we're really excited for next week's webinar. You can sign up for that if you scan this QR code or go to Eventbrite, to the same place where you went to register for this webinar. I am incredibly pleased to welcome this team at Eagle Hill to this series, not only because it's Eagle Hill's first appearance on this webinar series, but also because I get to welcome Gretchen Larkin back, welcome home to the Greenwich community. I know this has been a coming home for you. I'm probably not the first person to say it, but welcome back to Greenwich, Gretchen. Gretchen is a recognized and really visionary educator who the community is lucky to have back at Eagle Hill. She has over 30 years of experience in education as both a teacher and an administrator. Prior to taking up the reins at Eagle Hill last July of 23, she was the head of school at Charles River School, where she piloted many initiatives, and particularly was honored by the Council for Advancement and Support of Education with the Division Chief Executive Leadership Award, which is an award that normally doesn't go to sort of non-university leaders. So it was a real honor. Gretchen has also held senior leadership positions at Milton Academy, as well as Fay School, Dedham Country Day, Advent School, and Brunswick. She also started her career, I think, at the Windward School in our neighbor in White Plains. And, and I mentioned that she's coming home to Greenwich, but Gretchen grew up here and graduated from Greenwich Academy. So welcome to the panel, Gretchen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Christine. Thank you so much for inviting us.
Oh, I know I love doing this. This is my favorite thing. I love looking at schools. It's really, it's like a weird thing of mine. And I'm kind of sad that my kids are both in college, so I don't get to do it anymore. So this is my way of continuing to look at schools and think about what makes them the right fit for different students. So anyway, thank you so much for joining us. I'd next like to introduce Jenn Harkins, who is the upper school division head at Eagle Hill. Jenn has been a member of the Eagle Hill community for over 30 years, starting out as a teacher in the upper school, moving on to educational advisor, and really taking the reins in curriculum development and community development. She's been an active member of Eagle Hill all over the board, including not just in the classroom, but as well out on the field with students as well. And she's coached the field hockey, lacrosse, and basketball teams over her time at the school and as part of the community. She's also a member of the Learning Disabilities Association of America, where she served on the board of directors a few years ago. So welcome to our webinar, Jenn.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'd next like to move on to Shari Bloomer, who has fallen off the screen here. Apologies, but once she starts talking, she'll join again. Shari also began her career at her journey at Eagle Hill 27 years ago, which is a real hallmark of the school and the community, which I hope we're going to touch on in our discussion. And she moved on after being a lower school teacher to, a little bit of a parallel track with Jenn, to move on to be an educational advisor and then a lower school division head. She helped oversee all aspects of the Eagle Hill program for students in her caseload. I love the educational advisors. I kind of think of them as not the architect, but like, the general contractor of, each student's plan. And, I love that. And I love that every student at Eagle Hill has one. Welcome to the panel, Shari. We're really, really happy to have you.
Thank you so much. I like that idea of a general contractor to wear my hard hat next time.
Yeah, exactly. It's I mean, Gretchen can be the architect and you can be the anyway. So that's my little analogy on that. Next, I'd like to introduce Aimee Byrne. Aimee is the director of language services at Eagle Hill, which is a huge job, given that your bread and butter, your core of what you do is supporting students with language-based learning disabilities. So language services is a huge component of what that is. She's been, a member of the lower school advisory team. She's been a language specialist, and she's 25 years of experience in this area, supporting students with various expressive, receptive, and pragmatic language disorders, making her an expert at, helping our kids, learn to, work well in the school environment. So we're really thrilled to have Aimee join us. And
Thank you.
last but not least, I'm going to skip over this because Kara Ashley, unfortunately, was ill today and is not able to join us, but she is very ably represented in the, in the enrollment area by Emma Lipman, who is joining us today. I'm sorry, Emma, that I don't have your picture and but this is only for like a second, so don't worry about it. But welcome to the panel, Emma. We are really excited to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And because, it's a webinar and I have to do this. Next is our disclaimer. This webinar panel is presented for informational purposes only. This webinar is intended as a resource for families who are navigating the special education system in Connecticut or New York and is not intended to provide legal support, advice, or assistance to any particular individual, nor is it intended to replace the advice and counsel of a qualified special education attorney. Families in need of legal advice, support, or assistance should contact a special education attorney licensed to practice in their state of residence to discuss the specific needs of their individual student. This webinar should not be construed as an endorsement by Special Education Legal Fund or any of its representatives of any of the participating attorneys, advocates, or professionals in the panel, nor should it be construed as an endorsement of any school or school representative invited to appear on this panel. And that was a mouthful. Thank you all very much. Thank you so much for joining us. I really love doing these. I think I shared with you before we started that one of the things that I wanted to start to kick off this webinar talking about is what brought you to Eagle Hill, and what was the thing that when you first stepped onto campus that jumped out at you and that was special to you. Anyone can go in any order, but I'm really looking for what was the spark about Eagle Hill that drew you to the community.
I can jump in if you want.
You want to go, Jenn? You can go first.
So I think just the idea, I've always wanted to work with students with learning differences. So I think that was the primary, was that it was a great place for that. But I think maybe talk a little bit more about what kept me here, because 30 years ago seems like a long time. But building on what you said, Christine, about like being a general contractor, I think it's really the opportunity to build programs for each individual student. And I worked at a school before I was here where I was not able to do that. I was really confined by, this is our program and you either fit it or you don't. And I feel like it's given me incredible opportunities, whether I'm in the classroom or an advisor or as the head of the upper school, to really think about the student and what the student needs and being able to build something around that. So that's really what's kept me here.
Fantastic.
I can add to that.
Absolutely.
I think the guiding light here for me was one of our founding faculty members, Janice Curtin, who I worked with her daughter when she was a little one. And she knew I was finishing up grad school. And she said, Shari, I think you should come by and just check out this school, because it's something special. And I think you'd enjoy being here. And she could not have been more right. And I think I'd echo everything Jenn said, but I also would talk about community. I think that is something you feel when you step onto our campus. There is just a sense of community throughout the buildings, whether it's amongst the children and the relationship we get to have with the children. No matter what your role is, it feels different, and it is different, but also amongst our colleagues. There really is a sense of community and support, not only in what we do in our offices or our classrooms, but also in how we help each other problem solve, how we help always looking at the child's needs first, and thinking about how Aimee and her amazing team and our counselors can help us always keep the whole child in mind when those decisions are being made.
Wonderful. Who wants to go next? Gretchen?
Sure.
New person perspective?
I was going to say, I plan to stay for a bit, and hopefully in a few years I can say what kept me here. But right now I can say, look, having grown up in Greenwich, as Christine said, I have known about Eagle Hill for most of my life. And when we decided to leave Boston, my search was mission driven, and I wanted to find a school whose mission just resonated, and could not have imagined that Eagle Hill and the timing would have worked so beautifully. But I had not been on campus in decades, and to step on this campus and first and foremost see the beauty of the campus, which I think is so important to a child's learning, and to come onto a campus where children come to us needing to be loved up, and families come to us needing to be loved up, that they are surrounded by these beautiful 17 acres, as you saw in the video. And then to come into the classrooms, as Shari was saying, and see this synergy between the teachers and the children, and this respect for what children can do and are able to do is everywhere. And I had a parent, I think it was a parent last year, say to me that you step onto this campus and you feel like it's a warm hug. And that said everything. Because yes, it's purposeful in what we do.
That.
Very purposeful. And yet we're creating an academic whole child program while still feeling like a warm hug.
Amazing. Aimee, you want to go next?
Sure, I can jump in. I agree. I think when we're asked about Eagle Hill, I think the first thing that we say is the sense of community, and feeling that sense of community, as everyone said, once you step on, campus. I think for me, as a speech language pathologist or a language specialist, which we're now called, the idea of being able to work with a team was pretty intriguing to me when I first started. The size of my department has grown since then. But nevertheless, I think that's unusual, especially given a school system where we can kind of be a singular entity. I think within our community are a group of talented educators. And I think, again, given my department and the way we operate, being fully integrated in the program, kind of speaks to the work that we're able to do. I think that collaborative team-centered approach to teaching is really motivating. And I think a huge reason why I stay here.
Wonderful.
Okay. I have a very unique perspective because I started my career here 12 years ago, and I left for a couple years, moved down south, and I worked at a school with a similar mission to Eagle Hill. But I came back up to New York in January, and I came back and worked as a teacher with Shari and Aimee. Now I'm in this role, and I think for me, everybody's kind of said why I came back here. It's the community. You literally drive into Hogwarts, and it's a beautiful campus, and you can't beat the season changes here either. It's just beautiful. But I also, our students, they learn differently. Their brains are different. And I love seeing how these different brains work and think, and getting to be part of that day-to-day experience for our students.
That's amazing. Gretchen, I love what you said about, the kids and the families needing to be, kind of loved up, because a lot of families, when they get to, a place like Eagle Hill, I know that's my experience, when my kids were at that age, and it's a little bit like a, you're exhaling, you're waiting and you exhale, but it's also true that, that it's sometimes there's relationships that need to be repaired, and trust has to be rebuilt. And I think that that's an amazing thing that you alluded to it, and that you've, you've honed in on that so quickly, is wonderful. So, who is the Eagle Hill student? I really would love for all of you to contribute your thoughts on, who is the Eagle Hill student, and what kind of student thrives, in your community?
So the Eagle Hill student is a student who has a language-based learning difference disability, and that is their primary need. However, the students here, we have at least an average ability with their intelligence, and we really focus on building that foundational literacy. We have throughout the entire program, and we kind of start from that learning to read and then reading to learn. And our program is, as we'll talk about throughout this, really follows the students where they are ready to learn and when they're ready to learn, how they're ready to learn. And that's what I think really makes us very special. But our students are also able to function in that group setting. We are not a therapeutic program. We don't have the supports for that behavioral or social emotional needs or the one-to-one support.
And
But
so just to clarify,
yep.
your student, your Eagle Hill student, is a student where, the primary challenge is the language-based learning disability. Now, there might be ancillary challenges that come from the child being in an environment that is not supporting the language-based learning disability. And very often those things go away when they're in a supportive environment. But at heart, you are a school that supports those students that are, that have difficulty learning to read, that have, a traditional, the more traditional dyslexia or whatever. Is that a fair way to characterize that?
Yeah, and I think that Aimee, jump in too, because I think when people hear language-based, they may think just the speech part of it, the articulation part, and there's
right.
so much more that goes
Right.
into speech and language. So, Aimee, feel free, jump in here.
Yes. So I think when we talk about language, we are really talking about sort of those three umbrella terms. So, you'll hear often expressive, receptive, and pragmatic. Clearly language is inherent in all aspects of a child's academic program. And so I think part of the Eagle Hill student is a student who is able to learn and thrive and grow and progress, given the levels of support that we have to offer here at Eagle Hill.
I also think thinking about the students who come here, and again, like to take Gretchen's term of they need to be loved up. I think it's often been, and I'm in the upper school, so when I get the students in, 6th to 8th grade, I think they've had a rough road sometimes before
they've had a lot of failure, and and that's hard. That's really hard.
Kids and families, parents, it's been really rough for them advocating
Absolutely.
nonstop for their kids. So I think one of the things too that I love about the kids who come here is they're now in an environment where everyone is familiar with what they've gone through. And so I feel like I was in a class this morning
And
where
that's a real exhalation for the kids too.
huge.
Is huge.
Kids were talking about their mistakes with each other, and they were taking risks of saying, like, I don't get this, I don't understand. So I think that's something that I think about for our kids when they come here. It's like you're surrounded by people who are going through what you're going through, and it feels like you fit somewhere finally, instead of having to leave a class because you need to go to a resource room, leave a class to go to a language person. So I feel like that
just sit in the back of the classroom feeling like you don't know what's going on.
Exactly. And you can't hide here, for better or worse, for the kids. Small classes and no hiding.
And I think to your point, Jenn, that's a big message for our new families when they come in, is that we ask for their patience because they are wounded, both families, the parents and the children, and that we want to rebuild that self-esteem. We want to rebuild that belief that they can be successful in a classroom. So if that means we pull back a little and meet them at an area or a level that's independent for them and they just bank that positivity, great, because at the end we're going to get this amazing springboard to work off of. And similar for parents, we invite them into our offices to say, tell me your journey, because it was a journey for you as much as it was for your child. And sometimes the scars are even deeper for the parent. And just kind of develop that partnership from step one of that we're really here together. And that's where Aimee and her team join those meetings, our counselors join the meeting, because again, just trying to look at that whole child and understand, the road can be even so rocky when they come in because you can't hide, to Jenn's point. And some of them have really good strategies to hide what they can or can't do.
Kids
and
are
they've
amazing.
learned.
They really are.
Yeah.
They have lots of coping strategies. I want to come back to that, that idea in terms of, what you do to, and sort of hit on the, the general contractor idea again, theme again. But I want to ask, how do you transition a student and a family into the Eagle Hill community? You sort of started with that in terms of the meetings and, the beginnings of, of collaboration. But, how do you do that, for a new family?
Emma, do you want to start in your part, and then we
Yeah.
can kind of take it through from there?
Yeah. So, from the very beginning, we, Kara and I field phone calls from lots of different families, and we start there. We listen to the stories, we hear the concerns, we hear the worry, and we help our families, and we let them know we've got this, we've got them, we're gonna help them, and truly, even if we're not a right match for their family, we're always offering to help guide them in a different direction too. We have families come in for personalized tours. We have virtual info sessions. We have open house coffees. And then throughout the application process, and all of this is obviously on our website, but we ask for updated neuropsychological evaluations, report cards, teacher recommendations. And then once we have a more complete student profile on paper, we actually will invite a student in for a shadow day, potentially too. And that's really where we get to see, our students and
Right.
see how they
And get
do
to know
on
them.
those visits. And one thing that I think is so amazing about our faculty is that from the moment even a new child steps on to campus, we've got them. We've got that embrace, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna give them that hug, right?
Absolutely.
To help them feel supported. And then throughout that whole process, we're constantly working with families. If we need to get more feedback, we do. And then once a student we feel is a right match, they've been accepted, we have them come in for a screening. And this will tie into what Jenn and Shari, I'm sure we'll talk about when we schedule students and where we place them. But we have our own internal screening that uses diagnostic prescriptive materials that we use to then place the students where they're best ready to learn.
And that's how you begin the individualizing process for
Exactly.
for the particular child, is like,
And I can,
is at that point. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I can add to that. I think this is one of my favorite parts, is the opportunity to meet obviously new prospective students. We also sort of piggyback on that admissions process. My team of language specialists does conduct a language screening for all new students, and that consists of the use of a screening measure that looks at different aspects of language, basically using those results to help us make a determination about the level of support that a child will need while they're here at Eagle Hill.
Perfect. Can you talk a little bit about, obviously the individualization process begins, really when you're bringing the student in. Can you talk about how you use curriculum, as you are, getting to know a student to, individualize their experience even further?
Yeah, so I mean, we look at the student on paper, and this is where it's tricky, right? Because
Of
we
course,
really
yeah.
do look at our children as a whole child.
Yeah.
And I kind of go off
And seeing
of,
them on paper is like, what is that,
yeah.
Yeah.
So I also, I'm very much involved in the classes. I teach 2 classes. I'm pretty well versed in our students. And I really do try to match the students based not just academically, but also socially. And so I start with looking at those scores, looking at report cards, looking at any work samples.
Sure.
And then I speak to Jenn and Shari and potentially Aimee to see where the best fit is. So we actually start that collaboration process very early in the application process and bringing new families in.
One, someone, I can't remember who it was, mentioned, students being pulled out of their, of their classes in different environments to receive supports and services. Can you talk about how you, in your environment, integrate those services and supports into the day, into the students' experience? How do you do that and make it part of the, the total milieu, as it were?
Aimee, you can start with that.
Yeah, I could start with that. We have a pretty robust, for, given the size of our school, integrated service department. I think that was one change that we made in terms of what we're sort of calling ourselves, if you will. And I think integrated is really kind of hits the mark because we are all sort of using this collaborative approach to support the whole child. As I mentioned before, I think very often we can be sort of separate entities, but here we really are a part of sort of almost every kid's journey. In terms of language services, so I can speak to that obviously. Again, we are providing services to support skills that fall under those language domains that are directly related to a child's academic and social growth. We do provide pull-out services. So again, based on results of that screening, but we do only meet with kids one time per week in a small group because our service is complemented very highly with a collaborative level of support. And so that basically means that we're, going into classes, we're helping students learn skills sort of in real time. I think one unique aspect of our program is for our youngest group of students, we do have what we call an oral language class, and that's basically part of their schedule. It meets five times per week to support, language needs that are tailored to the needs of that class period. The counseling department works similarly through that collaborative model, but there's also opportunities for them to meet with individual students or groups of students, basically addressing sort of needs that are most related to school related issues. I think, again, that collaborative model allows them to touch every single student in this school through their social emotional learning lessons. And those are embedded within our literature classes, which is a unique sort of class for them to begin discussions about making connections and, social emotional learning, understanding a learning disability. And then I think the final way that we integrate support is through occupational therapy. And again, that's very collaborative. Our occupational therapist is working in writing classes to support fine motor skills, but again, also has that opportunity to provide more individualized support when needed.
Wonderful. I mean, so piggybacking on that, I'd like to talk a little bit about the educational advisor. So many of you on this call were educational advisors. So I think that that's, great. It's a great opportunity to understand a little bit more about that role and how you play that role with each student, and also each family and how they, how the communication works with the team and what you're communicating with parents. I think that would be a great thing to understand.
So Shari and I are still educational advisors.
I was just going to say that.
So that's part of it. Still falls under our umbrella there. So I have a caseload of 28 students, and I think just to give an overview, I think of us kind of as being the concierge for the families. So we are the child's advocate. We are there to support parents. We work with the districts. We are on PPT or CSE calls to support families. But we're really, when you were talking about like them coming into the school, we're really their first or maybe second after Kara and Emma, the touchstone for them. And we are the go-to that they can ask us anything. We are putting together those schedules for students. And it's
You're the conduit for information on sort of a weekly basis.
If you want to know overarching how things are going, you want to know if your child has made a friend or who you can call on the weekend to set up, we call them hangouts in upper school, but play date in lower school.
Yes, it's not a play date.
Oftentimes that's the biggest thing that parents want to know is who's my child spending time with at recess. They haven't had a friend before. How do we connect them with that? So there's a lot of hats that we wear, but I think it's really unique and important role at Eagle Hill. And it's we have students in our office all day long too. I mean, they come here, we're their go-to if someone else is not around. So it's support kind of all around.
And that's really important. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying, really important. Summarized it really well
to reinforce those connections. Sorry, Shari.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No. I was gonna say, there's the other flip side of it too. Is that yes, we work with the outside world, if you will, with parents and specialists, but then it's the work we get to do with the children themselves and being able to monitor their time and their journey here. So it's that problem solving in the moment with the child or with a group of teachers to kind of look for those trends that are happening and synthesize the observations from the different teachers during different parts of their day or different, preferred versus non-preferred subject areas. But I think it's unique to us, and from an administrative position, it really keeps us grounded with kids, which is, I think, I know I speak for Jenn, that is one of the best parts of the job, is that we are still, literally, I texted people to be like, don't let a child in my office, please, because it's a constant flow, and I love it, but it's an
Oh, like for
opportunity that
this,
you,
yeah.
yeah, for this,
Yeah,
yeah.
Not in general.
I was like, please,
Not in
for the
general, for
next
this.
hour, I did
Yeah,
not lock
for
the
this
door.
hour, you have the little sign on the door. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. But I think that's the beauty of it, that we still have these amazing connections and opportunities to spend with time with children that you don't always get in an administrative role.
Yeah, no, and that keeps you, grounded in terms of what the students need, because you're still
Yeah.
out there and actively involved in, the provision of services and the creation of a plan and everything like that. You're not like, like, up in the air or whatever. I don't even know.
And
what
we
I'm
all,
saying.
we all, educational advisors all teach at least one class as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah.
still really in the educational piece
In
and,
the flow, yeah.
still looking at research and thinking about the best practices and things as well. So I think that keeps us grounded in what's going on, in the school as well.
Absolutely. How do you,
Can I-
sorry, Gretchen, go ahead.
I was just going to jump in just with a perspective of having been at so many schools prior to Eagle Hill and with lots of different advisory programs. One of the things that has struck me is that, look, it's so hard and complex in this day and age to be raising a child, and then to have a child who needs a school like Eagle Hill.
Yeah.
And I have a child who needed a school like Eagle Hill as well. And there's a safety net that is created by the advisory program here that we just nothing's going to fall through the cracks. Like, we are here, we are the foundation, we're the net that's going to catch you,
Yeah.
not just child, but the parent. And I've seen in the short 16 months I've been here, I've been to plenty of alumni events at this point and met lots of alum.
Sure.
And the relationships that are created between the advisors and the children and the families, they're longstanding. I mean, it is like bees to honey when you see these
Oh,
adults
yeah,
even come
yeah.
back, because we do have so many teachers who have been here for a while. These young adults now come back and they can't wait to see
Their advisor that they had when they were in second grade, which is amazing. That's wonderful. Can you talk a little bit about how, obviously your kids, stay with you for a few years, and we'll get to that topic in a minute. But how do you support your students, through, the PPT and CSE process that we, someone alluded to earlier? Obviously that comes up once a year, and, for a lot of your kids, you're not an approved special education program in Connecticut anymore, which is called an APSEP. And, we have a whole series of webinars on like what an APSEP is. But just to, summarize it, it is it's a program through which the state can directly place a student in a PPT meeting. And it does not mean that, obviously Eagle Hill is accredited and very very highly accredited in everything that it does. But you're no longer, so, I just wanted to get a sense of how that annual meeting looks in, for families, because, we still have to support them through that process.
Yeah. Jenn, you want to take it? Or you want me to?
Sorry, I threw a lot in
go.
there.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
So I think one thing is that not all of our students have IEPs when they come to us.
Right.
And so I think with the idea that you have to leave us at some point, we don't have a high school. So a lot of times as part of the process, when we're talking about this, we really do talk about the importance of having an IEP and documentation that will help to support you legally when you leave us. And we do have students who leave us and go back to their home district school. So if they have an IEP, we're really focused on helping them to maintain that IEP.
Sure.
And our roles for educational advisors, we are on as an advocate. So we gather all the information here. We're talking about present levels of performance.
Yep.
We're helping to develop goals because obviously they're with us in our program. So we help the districts to develop goals. We comment on the goals that are on the IEP as to whether they're appropriate or not appropriate moving forward and the progress that's been made there. And I think for us, it's really, we're trying to work in collaboration with those districts. So it's very much a partnership. And I think we've been very lucky for that because that doesn't always happen with independent schools and public districts, but we've been very fortunate to create relationships where we do have working relationships with them. And so it's a respectful meeting, which I think is wonderful. And we do have teachers who join us as well to talk about the students. So yeah, for us, I think we see that as very important and as our role to be a part of the advocate. I mean, many parents, I think before they came to us had hired advocates or hired lawyers to attend those meetings because there's a lot of educational jargon. And so we can kind of sift through some of that jargon and we can help to make sure that their child is getting the best that they need while they're here and for when they leave us. And
I think that's great that you do that, you know, and because I know, you know, as a parent who's been through the process themselves, you know, that's a very fraught time, even when you are at a, you know, an independent special education school. That time of year is still very, very anxiety provoking. And, you know, for you to be able to, you know, have that whole team that supports your child every day come together in support of you during that meeting and the preparation for that meeting is really an amazing thing. I have, you know, I want to make sure that we cover all of there's so many things to cover with you, you know, with Eagle Hill and the Eagle Hill community. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, I alluded to earlier in this presentation, is the length of time that your faculty and staff, you know, stay with you. Can you talk a little bit about professional development and how you you know, continue to sort of push the boundaries of learning, not only for your students, obviously, but for your staff and your faculty?
Shari, you want to take that or you want me to?
No.
And Shari, will you talk a lot about, please mention what we do within our faculty? Yes, we have the outside professional development with experts, but I think it's really unique what we do within.
Absolutely. So, you know, our school day is structured a little different than a typical public school, where the children come 8 to 4, Monday through Thursday, and Friday they go home at 12:30. And part of the benefit of that is to create a sacred time for professional development every Friday afternoon. So from 1:15 till 4 on Friday afternoon, it's devoted to our faculty. Sometimes we have outside speakers. We have someone coming in this week that speaks to our whole faculty and staff about really important topics. Sometimes we tap into our specialists within our buildings. Aimee and her team often give talks about, you know, key aspects of language, especially vocabulary development, background knowledge development. Same things with our counselors, with technology. You know, we really try to encourage that use of time to be purposeful, and asking the faculty really about what are the needs they feel that will help them develop, you know, in their craft and their understanding of our child. Our first and second year teachers have a different track slightly for their professional development because they're just starting to learn. And even if they've come to us with experience, our world is different here. And we really want to take the time to kind of walk them through our best practices. Having said that, all that we bring here and we have within house, we also encourage those to go out and seek the professional development outside of our building. You know, if they want to do some more PAF training, or if they want to do OG training, or if we have so many people that are interested in executive functioning skills, or varying degrees of language, you know, just to expand upon it and attend workshops or webinars. So I think, you know, with Gretchen's blessing, we have a lot of support in place to encourage that. And I think as a teacher, you should have that internal drive, I believe, to always want
get
to
better
learn
and to learn more about
Yeah,
your students.
and I think we are
And
blessed
what's
with
cutting
faculty
edge.
that really have that.
And the
Amazing.
one thing I would add to that too, and I think Christine, you're about to go into how long people are here, and for
Well, I was going to do a pit
well,
stop first at what
okay.
students do, but yes.
But I was going to say for students, but part of it too in the upper school, I think one thing that people do for professional development is go see other schools where our students go to next. And I think that's really important to kind of keep the reality in there of what are we sending our students to? What do they need to be
Sure.
prepared
What do they need to be
for?
prepared? Yeah.
Exactly. So that is an important piece of the professional development, I think, for us as well, is keeping in touch with what the expectations are when they leave us.
That's
Yeah,
super
and I'm just
helpful.
going to add one quick thing. I think outside of those sort of structured professional development opportunities, I think again, just thinking about my role and how collaborative we are always meeting as teams of teachers
Mhm.
to talk about students, talk about how to modify a lesson. I think that again is a unique feel for a lot of
And you get to
teachers
do that
here to
every
have that.
Friday. You
Yeah,
have the time, which is really, really
yeah,
special
and also
and
within our
important.
day, we're
Yeah,
doing that too.
absolutely.
So yeah.
Absolutely.
Can I add
Um,
one more thing about our
sure.
faculty? We
Sure.
have a lot of teachers here that are experts in other things other than teaching. And I think that really brings a special component for our students. For instance, we have an amazing garden, and there are students that really thrive out in the garden. Same thing with our sports. And our science, we have musicians here, and that really taps into some of our students' extracurriculars and outside interests,
So
especially if they
that's a
come
great
here.
segue into my next series of questions, which is, one of the things I think that's really special about, sorry to cut you off there, Emma. One of the things that's really special about Eagle Hill is the robust community that you have for students outside of the classroom. Many of our students, come, like have experienced failure inside the classroom, and yet they have talents and interests and dreams that are that should be fully realized in their sports team or in arts and in music or whatever. So can you talk a little bit about what extracurricular activities, that word doesn't really encompass what it is, but what extracurricular activities that you have at the school, and how that helps build the student community?
I think one of the greatest things, and you just talked about a lot about the kids who are talented, and that's wonderful when we get kids who are talented and they're great athletes or they're great artists or they're great musicians. But I think sometimes what I love best about our place is that when the kids are not so talented, or they've never played a team sport, or
Right.
they've never been in a play,
Right.
this is the place to do it. And this
That's
is the
amazing.
place
Yeah.
where we don't cut from our team. So they're going to be able to be on a team. They're going to be able to wear that jersey to school and feel
Mhm.
great with their group of
Yeah.
friends who are also wearing the jersey. They're going to be able to be in the play or be backstage in a play. So I think that it provides an opportunity to highlight some of the strength areas of our kids outside of the classroom. And we do have some amazing soccer players and field hockey players and artists. And it also provides an opportunity for those kids who never wanted to take that risk because they were up against those kids who were so good. So I think it's a really nice balance. And it goes back to, I think, what Emma was talking about these faculty who like embrace all of those kids, whether
Right.
they are a super athlete or they've never picked up a stick before.
And you all participate fully in that through coaching and and being involved in those programs, and you all do have a very robust component, a full you're fielding a full slate of teams, and and you have your plays and your music, so the offerings that you have are really very complete for students that that want to be out there, like burning off some of that physical activity, but or want to be you know, you know, like having interests that are musical or artistic or in other ways. And so I think that that's having all of those opportunities is fantastic. Gretchen, you look like you want
Christine,
to say
yeah, I
something.
think when children come here, as we've all agreed, they've been a little beat up. They're not feeling great about themselves. And so to have to know you're going to another school, to be able to come here and have a full school experience.
Experience.
It isn't just, you're not just going to a very sort of stale, just here's your classroom, you're going to
Right.
learn these skills because you
Right.
couldn't do them. We want our children to feel school pride.
Right.
And
No,
pride of
you're a
place.
school, that, I mean, I think I said that
Exactly.
before when we were getting on.
Yeah.
It's, that feel is the
And
thing
we want
that
them flying the colors, we want them
exactly.
to be proud to be here. And I think
Yeah.
we offer that both with the campus as well as all the offerings that are outside of the
Yeah.
classroom.
And that is also a great thing in terms of creating community and relationships with the students, because very often a lot of, at, independent special education schools, the students are coming a long way. they are not having those connections that you would have in your local, elementary school, with the friends that are playing in the playground or whatever. So it's very important that, that those bonds are forged, at your school, which, you all do a great job of doing through the, through those sports programs and all of the extracurriculars.
Can I just also give a plug? We have an amazing parent association here that really
Yes, you
works
do.
out beyond our walls to create that sense of spirit for families that don't live close by. And they have, just the other day, there was a big play date at a local playground here for,
Hangout.
a hangout. Well, no, it was third graders. So I think I'm
Okay, so
safe
it
to
is still
say it was a
play date.
play
Okay,
date.
got it.
But they really try to offer things for families for not only the children to get together, for the parents to get together and get to know each other too.
Fantastic.
We have our annual family fun day, which is just this incredibly energetic, fun, great community event. And I had a new parent come up to me Monday morning at carpool after it, and she said, that was like a real school. I didn't expect it to be.
Yeah,
And I was like,
yep.
of course it is. It is.
Yeah.
PA is amazing. And
Yeah.
they hosted it. And so it is, I'm so
That's
glad
really
you brought
lovely.
that up, Shari. It's a great
That's
And
really
point.
I
lovely.
think we obviously talk a lot about academics, but I think, all of these opportunities are really helping kids to develop relationships with each other. I think sometimes, kids just are not able to make, close friends in
Yeah.
other placements. And so a lot of times, we had a student at the beginning of the year say, I've never had a best friend before,
Yeah.
because these kids are in
And it's hard to
school
make them
with
in
kids who are like
class.
them.
It's
Mhm.
hard to make them in class. It's like those connections are really forged when you are collecting students together that have a similar interest. I mean, honestly, and that's, it's a great thing that you are enabling them to do that. I want to cover, obviously, how long your students are there and whatever. But before we do that, can one of you talk a little bit about the boarding program, because I don't think that is a well-known, obviously it's for families that are away, that don't live, within driving distance of your school, but also there are students, because I had a very good friend who boarded her son at Eagle Hill, even though they lived in Greenwich, because it was teaching him really, really valuable skills about, learning to take care of himself, and doing things for himself that, sometimes as parents, we're a little stunted in allowing our kids to do that. So I'd love for someone to talk about the boarding program a little bit.
I'm just going to clarify one thing you said, Christine, before I pass it off to the experts who have been here far longer than I have.
I want to be corrected all the time.
It was yet another draw for me, was this incredible 5-day boarding program. I think most people are surprised to hear that the majority of our students are within driving distance to school. They are not here because they live so far away that they've chosen a boarding school. It is absolutely for the reasons that you listed, that we provide these incredible experiences for children to learn, life skills in this very small, nurturing and structured boarding community. But we have many students from Fairfield County and Westchester County.
Yep.
Some who cross the bridge within driving distance from New Jersey, but it's most people are within driving distance, and it is the most incredible program. So I'm going to let you all take it from here to talk a bit about the synergy that happens in the dorm.
I think a piece of
Lower
it,
and middle school as well. It's not just our middle school students.
Christine, you were talking a little bit about like that independence. I think that's it's a really good thing for our kids to learn to be more independent. That self-advocacy piece is huge up there, but also the executive functioning skills. So like, how do you get yourself ready for a day? How do you make sure you have everything before you head out the door? Thinking ahead to the fact that you have a game day, so you need your uniform.
And you can't just leave it, and come back,
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And then I think there's some unique opportunities. We have students in math classes. We have a math teacher who goes up there and takes kids on a shopping trip. So they are actually practicing their decimal work and money skills. Going out, they take orders from teachers. We go to Target or PetSmart, or we're out there they're practicing, making eye contact and conversation with the person who's helping them, and their money skills. So what change should you be getting? Do you have your receipt? Have you looked the person in the eye? So there's all of that practice, as well as a really robust community service program. So we work with Inspirica in Stanford once a month. We work at
what a
Neighbor
great
to Neighbor. So we have kids who are really dedicated up there to doing things within our community as well. And I think that teaches them a lot too, in terms of how to be good humans, which is really important.
That's amazing.
Can I just add to going back to your question about professional development? Every faculty member here works in the dorm when they first start here, because we really firmly believe to understand our child is to understand the whole child, whether it's 7 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock at night when they're starting to fall apart a bit, or they don't have the language to still tap into, to have those robust social connections or explain what they need. So it's really an important part of our
So many of those
development
teachable
for all of us.
moments happen outside of the structured classroom environment. You know, it's like they always happen like at lunch or gym class, or like, you know, on the field, you know, or, you know, when you're, you know, disagreeing over what to watch with your friend, like all of that kind of thing happens outside of the.
And to that point, we also eat family style every day. So at every one of our lunch tables, there's a
I
teacher
actually love
there.
your lunch. We didn't talk about that, but the fact that you all have such a great supervised lunch program where, you know, and I mean that, like, you know, I've been through a lot of schools, and I only know of 2 where there's an adult at every table, you know, facilitating conversation and, you know, making sure that everyone feels included in what's going on. And I really love that about your lunch program. That's tremendous. We are coming to the end of our hour, and thank you all so much for being with us. I want to close our discussion today with a with a discussion of, you know, most of your students, well, all of your students come to you because for a specific educational reason. And can you talk a little bit about the trajectory of the Eagle Hill student, how long the average student stays, and, you know, and how you begin the transition? We talked about the transition into Eagle Hill. How do you begin and manage the transition out of Eagle Hill?
So it's a little tricky, and I think we go back to what we've been talking about all along, is it's very individualized.
Of course.
You know, as we said too, there is an end game. We're not a high school, so I think we start those conversations very soon. I mean, we joke in the upper school that when the students come into upper school and we're meeting with the parents the first time, we say, "Welcome to upper school. What's your plan for after us?" Like literally in the same breath, and really are thinking about next steps. We have a great placement office here who has visited maybe over 70 schools in this area and around the country. And so she is very familiar with next steps, whether it is, you know, your public district, an independent day school, or a boarding school. And we have students who go to all of those. So it's a very individualized process where you're working with the educational advisor and the placement office to think about what's going to be best next steps for your child. Are they still going to need remediation? Are they going to need support? Those are different things. And what does that look like in the next placement? And, you know, are sports important to your child? Well, we want a place that's going to have sports then. So we really are taking in all aspects of the student when we start to look at the next placement. And we do a lot of visiting, as I said before, of those places to have eyes on, say, does this look like a fit for Johnny? If it doesn't, we're going to come back and not recommend that school.
Where do your kids go when they leave you?
It's a variety. I would say it's almost like a third to public district, independent day, and boarding. And this becomes really individualized as well. So we have locally Winston Prep, Harvey, King, St. Luke's, Stepanak, Iona Prep, for their local day schools. I'm probably missing some if anybody wants to jump in. Worcester, and then boarding schools, we run the gamut from Foreman, Marvelwood, Eagle Hill, Hardwick, Proctor, Brewster, we're almost Greenwood,
Trinity Pauling. We have a couple
Trinity Pauling,
there.
St. Andrews in Rhode Island. So really kind of all over the place. Yeah.
And then obviously you have students that return to their public school district, you know, which are about a third, you said, of your.
And we work really closely with the district to make sure that that IEP is solid and that they're going to be getting the program that they need when they leave us.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I mean, again, thank you so much, all of you, to the team at Eagle Hill for joining me and our S.E.L.F family this afternoon to talk about your incredible program for students. You know, you have been a fixture of the community in Lower Fairfield County for over 50 years.
Almost
And
50 years.
almost
Next
50
year,
years. Sorry,
next year it's a
this is the
milestone
50th.
for us.
Sorry. And I think that having been around not quite quite that long as a person, I feel that one of the things that leads to success as a school is really knowing your student, and I know that you all and the rest of the staff and the faculty and the administration at Eagle Hill, you know who your student is and how to serve them. So thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon, and a recording of this will be available by the end of the week on our social media and will be distributed to anyone who registered to this program. Thank you so much, and be well.
Thanks
Thanks for
Christine.
having us, Christine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.